Moana is the latest from Walt Disney Animation Studios and is directed by John Musker and Ron Clements, who also directed Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, and Treasure Planet, which I'll get to more in a minute. But it also features the voice of The Rock, as well as a newcomer, it was actually a native Hawaiian, which I think is super awesome, whose name is, I'm about to butcher, Auli'i Cravalho? Sorry, I don't know how to speak your name. I'm so sorry. I don't know how to say it. But she does a great job. But it's a beautiful name, and I'm sure I'm butchering it. But she does a phenomenal job, and she is actually she's like 14 years old, and this is her first role. I just watched a special about Moana, and she was the last person that the casting group saw. So it's a pretty amazing that she got the role. Anyway, Moana is the story of a girl named Moana who wants to go and venture out beyond her island. She's pretty much like the princess, although she refuses to admit it, of this island. Her father is more or less the king, or at least like the tribe chieftain, and she doesn't really, not necessarily that she doesn't want her responsibilities, but she feels like there's a lot more out there for her. And she really wants to explore beyond her island, even though it's been pretty much prohibited. But then things start to go wrong on the island. Plants aren't growing as they should be. There's a lot of issues happening here on this island, and Moana takes it upon herself to venture out. Now she has to go find a demigod named Maui, who's voiced by The Rock, and she has to go and get him to return a stone that he stole a long time ago to restore balance among nature and some other kind of spiritual type of stuff. And it's pretty cool when you're watching it. It's just kind of hard to explain. Now, I was fortunate enough to see Moana early. Actually, I saw this movie like a week and a half ago, maybe 2 weeks ago. And I don't know why it took me so long to get around to doing the review. But basically, this movie is amazing. I love this movie. Beginning to end, I was glued to the screen. Walt Disney Animation Studios does it again. They completely break like my psyche. Like they did it with Big Hero 6. Frozen was pretty popular, although that wasn't necessarily my jam. And then Moana. Moana is a lot better than Frozen, in my opinion, but I'll get to that in just a few minutes. So as I was watching Moana, I noticed a lot of little references, tiny little things, visuals or sounds or things that were happening throughout the film that I felt very reminiscent of other Disney films. And it wasn't until after the film that I looked up and found out, like I said earlier, the directors, John Musker and Ron Clements, were the directors of Little Mermaid, Aladdin, Hercules, and Treasure Planet. There are a ton of references, not references necessarily, but parallels between those elements from those films and this one. There's little moments of like Little Mermaid where you see like Moana was swimming down to get something like the pebble or something like that, and it looked exactly like a shot from Little Mermaid. The boats that they used looked exactly kind of like the boat from Treasure Planet, like the sail ship type of thing. All of them looked very, very similar. The tattoos of Maui on Maui that move around and sort of like dances and talks to him and stuff like that, although he doesn't actually talk, it's more of like a miming sort of situation. But it all is reminiscent of other movies. Like that Maui bouncing around and moving on around his tattoos and stuff like that was very reminiscent of the singing ladies from Hercules. So there were a ton of references, and I realized this is the ultimate Disney movie. If you like all of those movies, then you're gonna love Moana. Moana was also another fascinating film because it did some things, it took some leaps and bounds and did some choices that you don't find in a lot of Disney movies. It felt very, not necessarily adult, but it felt very grown up, and it made fun of itself in a lot of ways. For instance, I think it's a much better film than Frozen because it did something that Frozen was very popular for. It sort of took this thing that the woman, Anna, or Elsa pretty much saved themselves, that they didn't need to be saved by a man as most Disney princesses had been up to that point. Moana takes a step above that and doesn't even give her a love interest. She's not in love with Maui. She's not in love with anybody on the island. She's not promised to any man on the island to be their wife. She's completely her own character. They don't try and give her some tragic backstory. There is a little bit of tragedy that happens in the movie. But speaking of which, they don't kill her parents, which is pretty awesome. So they took a lot of choices and really looked in the mirror to make this movie and said, look at all these tropes that we've followed for so many years, and they completely threw them in the trash and made their own movie. Sometimes they made fun of themselves. Maui references to Moana that she is a princess because she's like out on her own and trying to be her own person while at the same time having like a sidekick animal. There's hilarious lines like that that are essentially a mirror to what Disney has been for like the past 80 years or whatever, however long Disney's been around, that they really make fun of themselves but also introduce a lot of new stuff, and that's what makes Moana so much fun. Also, another thing that really sort of interested me about the movie as I was watching it is that the directors chose to stay with Moana for the entire runtime of the film. There was never a point where they had to remind the audience or visually show the audience of the tragedies that were happening back on her home island. They didn't have to cut back every 10 minutes or 20 minutes, whatever, to remind us, the audience, that the plants are dying, that the food is running out, that their supply is running out, that they are not able to have as lush as a life as they had previously had. And they don't go back. They reference it several times, like Moana's like, I have to get back to my island to save my people. But beyond that, it really stays with Moana. Moana is the main focus of this movie, and I think that was a really bold choice, not only by the directors, but by Disney, and it really makes you follow the story of Moana. You really care for Moana. You spend the entire runtime with Moana. There's even a point where her and Maui break off and go their separate ways. We don't see what Maui's doing the entire time. We stay with Moana. We travel with Moana, and she really sort of gets in your mind and in your heart a little bit because of a lot of the scenes that occur with her. There are some tearjerkers, I'm not going to lie. My wife was bawling at one point for one particular scene. I won't spoil that for you. But it was just a beautiful movie, and I love the way that it stayed with this woman who was extremely strong and is probably one of the best Disney characters I've seen in a long time. I think she's extremely powerful and a great role model for young girls, and I really, really like Moana. Like, the more I sit with it, the more I realize how much I want to see it again. And of course, it doesn't come out for like another week and a half. It comes out around Thanksgiving. So even if I wanted to see it again, I couldn't see it from the first time I saw it for like almost a month. And it's kind of driving me crazy knowing that I can't see it again because I liked it so much. Now, I've spoken about this entire video, all the interesting things that I found, but there's one thing that was innovative in this Disney movie. And that was, there was a very small shot, maybe not a whole lot of you may recognize it or see it, but there's one shot in this film where Moana's sort of standing on top of like this rock tower or mountain type of thing. I don't know what you want to call it, hill. And it pans around her in such a cinematic way that it really took my breath. I'm kind of getting chills talking about it, but it really took my breath away to watch this scene. It just looked so realistic. The visuals in this movie are absolutely stunning. The water, Disney crushes water. They've done water stuff for a long time now, and it's beautiful. They can't do wrong with water. It's solid. Moana's hair, absolutely gorgeous. I love the way it flipped around. It got wet. It was dry. They did a lot of interesting stuff, but this one little pan turnaround shot was wonderfully like refreshing, and I felt like I was watching a live action movie. The way the camera moved and panned around Moana a little bit, it was just such a stunning shot, and I completely blew my mind. I could not believe, I sort of sat throughout the rest of the runtime thinking about that shot and hoping for another one because it caught me so off guard that it was in an animated studio, Walt Disney Animation Studios film, who does amazing work. But this was such an amazing, gorgeous shot, the way it panned around Moana. And it was mind-blowingly beautiful and cinematic, and it was, I don't know what else to say. It was just amazingly shot, and I love that about this movie. Now, I've talked about a lot of good in Moana, and I loved Moana a lot. Now, I'm trying to think of negatives, and I've sat with it for 2 weeks almost, and I can't really come up with one. My only sort of negative, if I had to choose one, would probably be that there's so many influences from other movies that you may get caught up on those little things, like the Maui's tattoo being similar to the ladies from Hercules, or like the scene, how some things may be similar to like Little Mermaid or Pocahontas. Just very little things, but there's really nothing to complain about. Probably one thing that I didn't mention that I loved, and here it comes, is the music. The music completely blew my mind. There's so many great, amazing songs that's so beautiful and fit this atmosphere. And it's so nice to listen to, and it's beautiful. But other than that, I have no negatives. The music is amazing, visuals amazing, story amazing. Everything was fascinating about this film, and I can't wait to see it again. And I think it's definitely a must-own on Blu-ray for sure. The grade I'm going to give Moana is an A+. Guys, if you haven't figured it out already, I love this movie. It completely blew me away. It is hands down probably one of my favorite animation studio films. I love Big Hero 6, but I think that Moana is going to have to take the cake for me. Frozen was good, don't get me wrong, just not my jam. I just think that this Moana, is the movie that's going to hold a special place in my heart as far as being able to appreciate all the visuals, all the things that have come from it, things that it was influenced by, the music, the culture of it, everything just fascinating and beautiful, and I can't say enough good things about it. Also, while I'm on the topic, there was also another short film before. Disney likes to do short films before their films, and this one was called like Inner Workings or something like that, and that was actually a lot of fun. I had a great time with that one. It's kind of like the physical version of Inside Out. That's the best way I can explain it, where like the heart, the lungs, the stomach, it's kind of sad in a way, and a lot of adults will probably completely relate to it, but also it's a lot of fun for kids, and it's a good sort of telling of a story that not a lot of people are willing to talk about, I think, as far as being an adult goes, but I think it was really interesting and innovative, and I like that a lot as well. So guys, that's my review for Moana. I absolutely loved it. I can't wait to see it again. I've said it probably about 5 times in this video, so it was amazing. It comes out on November 23rd, which is like just before Thanksgiving, and I highly recommend seeing it. Whether you have kids, if you're an adult, it's a great adventure. It's beautifully shot, beautifully written. The songs are amazing, and I highly recommend seeing it. Whether you go Thanksgiving weekend or if you wait a little bit, it's definitely worth watching in theaters and definitely worth picking up on Blu-ray.
We're going to the realm of monsters?
Don't worry, it's a lot farther down than it looks.
So if you've seen Moana, or when you do see it, let me know down in the comment section below what you thought of it. If you noticed the influences that I noticed, if there was that little pan shot that you noticed, let me know your thoughts and opinions down below. Also be sure to hit this big subscribe button right over here to subscribe to my channel and check out other videos like my review for the Beauty and the Beast first official trailer, which I just posted the other day or yesterday, depending on when I upload this video. Guys, thank you so much for watching. You really are the best, and I'll see you in the next one.